Kemba Joe is a bold media voice, digital creator, and dynamic co-parenting mother who is rewriting what motherhood and success could look like. She's a content queen, a working mom, and a true example of how to stand tall in your truth. Even when society tries to guilt you into silence, she speaks openly about boundaries, soft strengths, and putting your child's peace above outdated expectations. She's not just talking the talk, she's actually living it. This episode is about real co-parenting. Kemba and I talk about not just the Instagram version, but the raw version. The sacrifices, the freedom, and the fake smiles and jealousy that comes along with doing it your way. And the peace that comes when you stop performing and start parenting with purpose. So let's dive in with this Do It All Mom, Kemba Joe, on It's Given podcast. How did your relationship end? And what was the moment you realized you'd be co-parenting?
I think for me, it started quietly, like most women, right? We don't just get up one day, I'm done. It's usually a longer process. So internally for me, it was a while coming. And then the actual day, it wasn't anything dramatic. It wasn't anything big that had happened. I just woke up one day and I was like, yeah, this is it. It was after a series of things that I felt would not be changing. And I made that decision sort of, yeah, I feel like that was what it was. And in that moment, I realized the fairy tale that I wanted was not going to happen.
So was it hard to accept that the family picture wouldn't look how you originally imagined?
Um, I think so. I think it was hard. Maybe not in the end, because again, there was that detachment that I would have experienced internally before the actual final goodbye happened. And in that detachment, I started grieving the things that I knew weren't going to happen, such
Yeah.
as this fairy tale thing that I had hoped could have existed.
I think with me it was just that I saw that I could either decide that me and her mother are going to learn to grow in front of her face,
Mm.
or we needed to step back and grow personally. And the position was she would have two unhappy people trying to grow up themselves being unhappy, or she could see two people really basically trying their best to be happy, being happy, not going through a traumatic situation, which I
Yeah.
think we all went through.
Yeah.
Which leads me to my next question. What emotions came up in the early days figuring out the new dynamic? Because with me, I was 1 minute like, oh, I free. The second minute, Isabella crying down a plate and literally kept Carl Tobago log threw it off for the whole weekend because I couldn't get her to put on a seatbelt. And I realized I am a single father when I have her because her mother is no longer here. It's not three of us, it's me. And then it went to that, and then it went to listen, we need each other. Let's be friends because listen, this girl is great, but I can't
Right. What emotions, boy? I think I may have gone through all the stages of grief.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of sadness. There was a lot of anger. There was
Plenty of anger. Oh God. But you know that was. I think there's a video of me mashing up a car. That's so angry.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's really crazy.
Yeah.
No, for me it was much more silent. My anger is always internal.
Mm-hmm.
And so sadness and then internalized anger and then sickness. So that's how I knew my stress levels were.
Sickness how?
When you internalize and you don't process. And
So you got physically sick.
And
What
I was
happened?
like, I can't even remember. I think it was just constantly feeling low, constantly having low energy, constantly having headaches. I was like, this is not how I normally feel. What is going on? And then the acceptance. So there's grief, and none of it fully ebbed away. I just said, I woke up one day and I was like, okay, this is the life I'm going to have to live. Okay, this is the responsibility I'm going to have. Okay, what else do I have to put in place so that we can function? And as much as I am a woman, there is a big part of me that shuts down every time.
Yeah.
So it will. Hey.
Hi, this is Diamond. Diamond, please, we are doing an episode.
It will.
Yeah.
So I will shut down. I will go into fix it mode. and not have real emotions. It's fine. And not have real emotions, or allow myself to feel the emotions. And I feel like that took a while to come to the surface.
Yeah.
Because there was no time to wait to figure out, well, I'm going to be sad today and just not do anything. I didn't have that luxury because I'm running a career.
Oddly enough,
my son is in school. I have no time.
Oddly enough, I think my daughter's mother and I gave each other that grace at some times, especially at the start when we decided that we're going to be friends. It's like there were some weeks where she's like, I just I can't. And I would just keep all along. But she was going preschool here.
Yeah.
So, or there would be weeks I was like, I can't, I'm in a mess. And she would be like, well, you're really in a mess. And then, well, we had our cameraman, her grandfather, support. We had support, and then we had Belmont. So she always had people to go by because of the family dynamic that we had.
No,
right?
I just kind of had to let it be. And I didn't have the room and the space to fall apart. Most people don't. There's
I think
always
you should
something.
Give yourself that grace to fall apart.
I did eventually.
Yeah.
I did eventually. It came.
We will go into that soon.
It came as it needed to, but just for the emotions I would have felt, I can't pinpoint one particular one. It was all of them, all at once.
Yeah.
It was all
because
of them.
It's like, what is going on with my life? Like, I had this child, because I know when you had this child, you didn't plan our kids. I didn't plan mine. So the thing is like, oh my God, what am I doing? So this child is going to be up in a broken home, because my mother's a Caribbean. I said, I have this child in a broken home.
Yes, there was a lot of grief that I had to make, and
I think it's on both sides.
Peace that I had to make with that, to be able to say, okay, this is in your life.
Because with the man, I believe we just believe like, what do you mean she knows she's done? And what do you mean she's done? Because you know you're done 5 million times before you're done.
No, for me,
but with us, we done 5 million times before we done.
For me, no. It was a very, and again, I was super clear. I believe I was super clear, and I said things like, hey, I don't know how much more of this I'm able to withstand. Like I am super logical. I try to take my time, and even if I'm far from now, the person I am now is not the person I was then, and I've learned a lot. But even then, I still made the effort to have conversations and to try to fix things before it got to that point. That was a good one. I have to go back and think about these things.
And I love that. And this is exactly why we have this conversation. What was the biggest challenges in those few months of co-parenting? Because as I was just saying before, I was like, there was a time I was like, oh, I'm free, I can do what I want. But then I realized, oh, she's crying on a plane. Then with me, I had a girl. So the bathing part became a big issue for me, especially the more she was getting older. Like, it's just weird because if a mommy is next to you, the thing is, I try to teach her, no, nobody ever, no man ever. But you're going to the Caribbean way of, but the thing is, the Caribbean way caused so much issues before.
Yeah.
So I always had that. I mean, thank God, like, I know the family is a better house, but the thing is, you never really know anybody. So the instill value I had to put in my head is like, there's like 2 or 3 people who are allowed to bathe you and all those things.
Exactly.
And I think that she actually did have to stay a little while with the mom while she learned to bathe herself.
Yes.
I remember that. So, but you, what was your biggest challenges in the first few months of co-parenting? Like, what do you realize? Because you have a boy, and this is the whole dynamic here. Now you have a boy.
The first few months, you say. Let me take myself back.
Yeah, take yourself back
to that time. First few months for co-parenting didn't feel like co-parenting. They didn't feel like that. It was me trying to settle myself into the new reality. It was me settling into a new living space, a new dynamic. Still grieving.
So you moved?
I did, yeah. I went back home for a bit, and that was another challenge in the dynamic, but it was necessary. So from what I recall, there was no co-parenting in the 80s. There was very static conversation. I need this, I don't need this, thanks, goodbye.
I was asking an ass because of the whole breakup, and I was going through my thing, which but a lot of people don't understand that men actually do go through postpartum. Men do go through it. And if you read the book, What to Expect When You're Expecting, it actually it says it's in there that men also go through it. And
I was going through it with her because the thing is, she met me. I was going through my own issues already.
Right.
And we had this child, obviously on plan. God wanted it, it happened.
Right.
And it is the best thing that happened to us. But that quick change from me moving into my little pad, as you see my pad here, it was supposed to be battery pad, and I have a whole family in it.
Yeah.
Right. And I now reached one stage and I jumped to the next stage. It was a lot.
It was a lot. So let me. I can't not address this piece. Men themselves don't go through postpartum depression because y'all don't give birth.
Don't give birth.
But I think men. I do agree that men go through their own version of depression.
But the clinical vision,
their own version, yeah, for sure, because it's this life event. It's a change. It's a huge change and the disruption to what we otherwise would know and enjoy. But because of the age that my son was at the time that his dad and I split, I feel like we were through certain things. So there were certain phases and the bathing and the everything. I was pretty comfortable with at that point because, I mean, mothers, we still tend to be the main caregivers.
Made her. You made him.
Exactly. So, we're the main caregivers, even, though it's opposite genders.
There's no startup without mom.
But yeah, there was no the challenges would have been just trying to settle into the new reality. And then for a little bit, I was wondering, I was like, could I go back, boy? Like, did I? Maybe I didn't make the right decision. Maybe this thing is going to be too hard. And so there was that mental challenge, in a sense, or that mental space of, am I sure? But for the majority, 99.99999% of me was sure. The 0.000000001 would have been some family members, tried to not let this die. You don't want your son to grow up in a broken home and all of those
broken
things.
Homes could have both of us.
It's true, and those were some of the challenges, I guess, that existed in the first few months. It feels so far away, and it is, and I may or may not have chucked it out of my mind completely.
Definitely.
But yeah, those are some of the things I had to face and go through in the earlies.
Oh gosh. So with me, where I'm gonna ask you now, where are the boundaries you struggle to enforce at first? Because with me being a male, I believe, especially in all these co-parenting situations, these startup, it comes like the mommy always like to give the male the rules of she can't do this, she can't do that. I don't like this, I don't like that. But my boundary as the father ended up reaching to the point where I had to say, listen, I love how much you care about it. Of course, you're such a mom. I love it. So anyway, but the only thing is, we co-parenting now. So she has her father and she has her mother. We have to agree on certain things that we must agree on for her greater betterment. I say, but when it comes to my way and my style, you do not tell me how. If it is I's cuss and she have a father that's cuss, you can't change those things. Right. And you can't do it. I say, because we teach her not to curse. Right. I say, if it is, I'm more raw with her. So I just do the sex talk one time and I do those things. I decided to do that. And I told you I was going to do it. I mean, we had a little conversation I would do. But the thing is, when I decide to do those things, if I decide to do things, which once is not in the detrimental nature of her, you have to let me be the dad. How I want to be the dad, as I let you be the mom, how you want to be the mom. Of course, when it comes to partners and meeting, we have those kind of initial rules and respect. But otherwise, my boundary with her was let me be me, because this is the father she have, not the father you want for her. It's what she has, and I doing what I'm supposed to do, and she has it. That is the father, and she allows it. Sometimes when she hear me talking to Isabella, Isabella the other day was asking, why do you send voice messages and things? And I was just teaching her a little way to lie in business. I can know how to pull back. I was like, I say sometimes you might be real great with a report and think your mother gives the same face, right? But the thing is, these are life lessons that somebody gotta teach you, girl, because you can't be just out here.
That's crazy.
Just but little small things like that. That's why I make it excuse. I'm gonna teach you things that your dad need to teach you.
That's crazy.
And you have to allow it. And she does allow it. She rolls her eyes and did that and she does this. But she knows this is the father she has. Right. So with you now, what was your boundaries that you struggled to enforce?
I think if you were to ask my son's dad and me the question separately, we'd both have very different answers. I would own the fact that I would have probably been super rigid
Yes.
with certain things. Bedtime is bedtime is bedtime. Don't care that it's a weekend and you feel like you want to, pop popcorn and have a watch a movie.
Wait,
Sleep
weekend
on.
has bedtime too?
Yes.
No, Kemba.
Hear me out. Because when he comes back home on a weekend, on a Sunday, and he's strung out on sugar and exhaustion, I have to clean up the mess and then be the person to get him ready for school on a Monday. And that's not fair to me. That's not respecting what the struggle is that you are creating. It's completely different if it's a one-off, as a birthday party or something.
That was Saturday night, and he comes home Sunday, so
He still has to be in bed by a decent time because children need guidelines and children need rules. And so I was very rigid.
Isabella and I actually stay up late
I'm
on Saturday watching
super
movies.
rigid about
I'm going to
those
church
things.
the next morning.
Love that for you. But you also have to know your kids. So I know
She
what
wakes up.
happens
She wakes up.
when my son gets totally strung out and he's wired.
Yeah.
He takes a while before he completely calms down, and then it's this fight. So I feel like the boundaries I would have had would have been all around routine for him, and then for me, and by extension us, the communication piece. And I struggle a lot because he and I are very different people. It's one of the things that
So would you say
it's one of the things we couldn't figure out.
would
Right?
you say
The
that,
communication piece.
that those boundaries did create distance between you all? Like basically even getting to the point where you all are now, because he's much older now, but I sure when he was younger it's like, oh, because I know you ladies with your kids, it's like
What I'm about to say
don't do this.
what I'm
Let the child
about
blow
to
up.
say is probably going to be really insensitive. I don't think I cared very much
Okay.
for
No,
how he
that's your
felt
truth. Yeah.
about what
But I wanted
I
to
didn't really
place.
care.
Yeah, you didn't care what you
I don't care how you feel about it.
Mhm.
What's important is that you recognize what the impact is to this thing that we're trying to create together.
Exactly.
Was I right? I don't think so. I don't think it was the best way to navigate the space, but it was what was needed because at the time, in the messiest middle, I traveled a lot for work. So I lived a life of structure and routine and
Exactly.
getting flights at 6 in the morning. There's no way that I could just leave things to chance. You know what I mean? There's no way I could just say, well, yeah, he doesn't have to get up to go to school, because if this piece falls down, then the whole domino roll, the stack of dominoes falls down. And at the end of that domino stack falling
Definitely.
down is my livelihood. The same thing that I need, the money that I have to make to be able to. So I think I may have been a bit of a rhymes with witch, but
So as you say with your livelihood and thing, were there times when like your pride or your hurt get in the way of actually the progress? Because
yes,
it was really, as you just said, you didn't care. It was really about you and your livelihood.
Yes.
So your pride and your hurt was like more important than what you think you should have probably bent on, but just like
no, because I bent enough and I
Mhm.
allowed enough and I gave of myself enough and I gave up myself enough, I feel. So
Mhm.
was there pride and ego? For sure. Took a while for me to make peace with that in myself, and to also, because at that point then I acknowledged, wait, I'm probably hurting this person more. I don't care for him to be my partner, but he is still the father of my son, and that was a rain check. So for sure, pride and ego. There was one particular incident that happened. I don't think it was me being full of pride and ego, but what happened was there was an argument. It was a really bad one by my standards, and it triggered my hyper independence.
Oh, okay.
And because of that,
Which could be quite annoying.
I
Hyper
suppose
independence is very annoying.
it is.
To me.
But at the same time, if this is how you're going to behave about it, then I'm just going to fix it. Too bad. So sad, too bad. Too bad, so sad. However, the saying goes. And so I went into hyper independent mode, and I remembered my mom was telling me, "Don't you think you're being a little too
Exactly.
prideful?" And I was like, "No, because I was really hurt. I was really, really, really hurt.
But 2 years a red woman, I'm sorry to say.
I-
You are a red woman.
I'm
And
wrong.
you all have a tendency that you're always right, and you're short, and you're beautiful. You are basically my channel. You're always right, we wrong, and y'all are just allowing us to have a
Diamond is like,
you
good,
just
you
can't.
good. Diamond is concerned.
Yeah, Diamond, I know, was like, yes, it's true. It's like, you are a red woman, girl. You are a red woman, girl.
Nah, the ego for sure, the pride is, I think, is very normal and natural, and I'm a fierce professional and independent. So there is a level of that, I think, that could have been higher compared, or if you were to consider somebody else's dynamic. But the biggest piece for me is not comparing myself to anybody else's dynamic, because that's how you fall into the traps. So to answer the question, was I prideful? I'm sure. For a while. Was there ego?
So it's a little selfish, which we have to do in our duties anyway.
If I
How am I
wasn't,
not selfish and be able to do anything for you?
so my thing is, if I wasn't selfish, then I wasn't selfish. I wasn't ever going to leave. And then my needs and the things that mattered, and my well-being and my mental space and all of those things, for what? Like, give it up for who?
Exactly. So how did both of you all learn to communicate better over time? Because obviously, yeah, as you say, y'all and I love the fact that we actually did film this episode before. It didn't work out well, so we were in a conversation because I needed to know more from our last line. Like, you said that you're in a real good place now.
Yeah.
But then obviously from our personal talks, it wasn't good like always like that. It was quite horrible. With certain things that I also had my issues with the horrible, which I would have told you I have done.
So what I did, I went to therapy. I went back into
I
therapy
love my therapy.
for myself.
Listen, give me them Xannies.
I also
Bro,
what is happening? I also had a couple of people that I'll check in with. So I used to call it like check my six. So I'd message a friend and I'll say, hey, this happened. This is what I did. This is how I responded.
crashed out.
This is what this person did. And I'm trying not to crash out. Check my six. Am I being da-da-da-da-da-da?
And that helped you.
And that helped for me to either recognize that I really was just doing too much, or it was really not guilt. Go ham on this dude because he's doing the most amount of shit. So I think between therapy and that, and then a lot of prayer and deciding what I wanted, it to be. So do I want this person back in this space of romance and working on things? No. That ship has sailed. But do I want to know that our son could grow up seeing a healthy dynamic between his two parents? Yes. And every time we stumbled, I struggled, I didn't want to do this. I was like, ah! Then I brought myself back to that question. What do I want my son? What's the example I want for my son? Over time, I also just got really stubborn. I was just like, I'm not the person who's shutting down the conversation. I'm not the person who's taking shit personally. And so it became not a script or a guide, but there were certain pillars that I will do. So I'm very clear direct in my communication.
Yes.
I will say what I have to say.
You are very condensed, very punctual, you're very put together.
I'll say what I have to say.
Which I think is exhausting. Huh?
It's not.
It's not? You love it?
It's how I manage to do everything.
I love that.
It's how I manage to do everything.
But this is why I was asking you before, because I was asking, Kemba, how are you on your radio and an HR professional, and then you have this other thing you tell me doing, and then after I see you filming all the damn time, doing all these projects. So,
it's discipline.
And then you're picking up your kid all the time.
It's discipline.
No, there's somebody else out there too.
In order to be disciplined, I have to be organized.
You're doing me and my child's mother's thing in one.
Coming back into the communication space, I'm very direct. I'm sometimes too direct, and that was one of the things that we couldn't figure out the time that we did. But I didn't let up because I wasn't doing anything, I say, wrong. The purpose of the communication was to make sure that he had all that he needed. For example, he goes for my work trips. I would do the laundry, because most times I was home on a weekend, do the laundry, prep everything, and I'm sending you an essay in WhatsApp. In this bag, there are 5 vests, 8 underwear.
Do you chat GPT it now?
Nope. 3 pairs of socks. In this other bag, he has his school books, which are super detailed and organized. I didn't really care about how you felt about receiving an essay, because if anything fell down while I'm out of the country for 3 weeks sometimes at a time, or a month at a time, it could never be that I didn't do something. If you understand, that my accountability was really high. It didn't work in the reverse. He would not do the same for me.
No. Why not? Because he's just not that person.
He's not. It took me a long time.
You think I'm going to send Isabella with a list of, these are the fun things we did this weekend, so you should talk about
Oh,
this.
no, that's
And-
different. That's different.
and
We're talking
she said
clothes.
that she liked her eggs cooked like
We're
this. and
talking clothes and items for survival. If you think about it,
Survival.
survival
because you
food
thought that
and
dropping
traffic.
dropping him as far, he would not have survived.
No, I'm talking about survival for the week when I'm not in the country.
It would
Being
happen.
on
It
time,
wouldn't happen
being
all
on
the
time, going to school on time. Because then I come home
Mm.
and then these kids prattle. So my son would tell me, "Well, mommy, I
Miss
got
Lee.
to school and I missed assembly." Excuse me.
Miss what?
And the communication was not that. His dad would say, "Hey, it was a da da da," and I hate hearing that from him because his record in school and the punctuality and the reporting, whatever. And so we had a
But this is
tough
where I
time.
think it goes back to what I was just saying. This is where you have to have an acceptance of the
Right.
father who he has.
Right. And
This is
so
his
a
father.
big piece of what has helped to get us where we are now is that radical
All right,
acceptance.
so that leads me to my next question.
Uh-huh.
What helped you all move from conflict to collaboration? And I think acceptance comes with it.
Therapy and prayer
acceptance
and
of
therapy,
certain things.
Therapy, prayer, grieving, and then acceptance. The moment you make peace with everything, at least for me, that's what it was. I was just like, okay. And then I started playing a game. I'm going to predict how likely is it that my son's going to come home with all of his items just totally mixed up. Because then my brain got happy. My brain was like, if it's going to happen, you're not going to be surprised. It's likely that it's going to happen. And then ever so often, things will be folded. I'll get a notification, a WhatsApp of, hey, this and this. When he drops them off, he'd explain what's on what and what.
So now you already answered my question.
I'd be like, oh, you mean?
So he
you
did
mean
learn to communicate better
He
over
did.
time.
He did as well. I mean, and to his credit, I just used to ignore him, you know.
No, even up to
I
this
just
day,
can't
they have
think
things
about
that
it.
I will send to my child's mother, and she will not. She will not reply.
He would no, as in I just used to ignore him in the sense of when he didn't do certain things, just ignore it. He would ignore me literally, just see the message and read it and just or like mid conversation be like, yeah, I don't have time for this and go on.
Well, with our kids being big now, I still is like, call your mother.
So I think another piece, this just dawned on me, another piece that I did not realize I was doing, but in hindsight, it makes sense. When our son was old enough to fold his stuff and pack his stuff himself, I started teaching him.
Well, Isabella actually comes here
I started teaching
and
him.
she does help. She helps her father clean his house.
Yeah.
She cleans up her room.
Yeah.
Things that the mother can't believe that she does. I said,
because it's not the
it's not, no, because I am her father.
Right.
I am a single man.
Yeah.
She is a very well raised young lady.
Right.
I am going to see about my father because,
yeah.
Well, that brings us, I wonder if it does bring us, because when it is, even if it's not here, I'm just going to go jump right into it, in that when I tried dating a bit,
yeah,
Isabella didn't like that with me.
Yeah.
Your mom could probably date her all and have a little stuff, but me, no. No.
Really?
And the thing is, it just makes sense. I am the dad, and this is a girl. If it was a boy, it wouldn't be no issue.
Okay.
It would be switch around. I would see that the mother would have probably never be able to have any.
I mean,
Because I never tell you, I just rub her foot, you know. I rub her foot. I rub her friend's foot while she is, and Isabella was like, no. She sits up and she watched me in a way that I never ever want to see her. I was like, you know what?
She's like, not on my watch.
I'm not going to do all
this. Will happen.
Like, I'm busy already anyway. I don't need to like include you in my life to have, and I'm okay with that because she will reach 17 one day. She will reach 6, and after then I'll be like, well, this is my girlfriend. And she'll be okay with that. But
dating,
her daddy can't have
dating as
around.
a single mom or as a single parent. I
think with a boy, isn't it harder?
I wouldn't want to compare apples and apples. You know, I think it's.
Do you get to?
What's that?
Date.
No.
With him around.
No.
You're 13-year-old boy.
Hell no.
Exactly.
And it's not even that I get to, that's not my priority. I have not ever, since my son's dad and I went our separate ways, was it a priority.
Does the father date?
I have no idea.
Shouldn't you know?
I should. And that was one of the, if you want to talk boundaries, or one of the things that I asked for. I said, hey, I'm not going to keep you from doing what you feel you need to do and putting your body parts where you feel that you want to put them. But please, out of courtesy, if
they're gonna meet.
If this bleeds into or becomes frequent, then out of respect for me, please let me know.
Definitely.
there was one time there was a thing that happened, and my son came home, and as most 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds do, I got the whole story. And there was an auntie that was called, and I was like, and I would never forget. I walked out my apartment at the time. The laundry was on the outside balcony, so the back of the apartment. And I remember he's like, "Mommy, and da 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 da, and so, and this and this." And everything in me went cold. Like I was freezing from head to toe at 7 o'clock in the night in the middle of August. I don't know. And I remembered I didn't try to speak to his dad that night, but I called him at 6 a.m. the very next morning because I didn't sleep that night. That night I didn't sleep. I went outside and I remembered my hands were shaking. And I called and I said, "Oh, so and so brushing my child's teeth."
And that was more about you and him than rather than the child being happy because he loved Auntie. Auntie wasn't doing anything wrong.
It was more the disrespect to me for something that I was very clear about.
Which goes back to your pride.
No, respect.
True.
Respect. Because if I say, "Hey,
tell me,
we're doing da," and you say yes, and then you just don't bother to do it, that's disrespectful.
But was Auntie somebody important or just an auntie just lying around?
I
think to give him grace, I believe that if it was somebody important, he would tell you.
I don't.
And he probably was like,
anybody who's around my child,
don't be around.
Is anybody who's around, and I need to remind myself it's not my child. Anybody who's around our child, there's a matter of courtesy.
I love what you say.
Because if it were to be the reverse, out of courtesy for him,
you know, it'll be a big scene.
He would be a complete ass. But how is it fair to introduce someone who may or may not be permanent? And that's just the logic. So I guess coming back into the whole dating space, that's probably a driver about why it's never been a priority for me, because my focus then was work. I was out of the country a lot for the better part of about 5 years. Figuring out life, figuring out parenting, figuring out co-parenting. I didn't have room to bring anybody else in the mix. Do I still have room? No, because now I'm doing media and da-da-da-da-da. Right? Would it be nice? Sure. Do I have moments in time?
Would it be nice? I mean, that's our next episode. You could probably come on that episode because I'm asking dating culture right now. Thank God I have a child to keep me busy because everybody's kind of crap.
And therefore, I'm not moved and motivated. I've never been moved and motivated. There are moments in time. Right, and those things stay completely compartmentalized and separate, and it's not a frequent happening. And then I move on, and that's life. So no, dating. Would I be allowed to? I don't think it's a matter of allowed to. As a big woman, I can do what I want. But is there, as a big woman, is there courtesy involved? Yes. Have I had conversations with my son about if I were to meet someone? Absolutely. We talk about it all the time.
Oh, so you already prepped him.
In theory, absolutely. And it's from ever since. And so at 9 or 8, the conversation is different compared to what it might be now at 13, where he's also going through puberty and he's able to understand what it's like to have feelings to people. And so I ask ever so often I ask. I remember I asked him once, I said, "Papi, can I get a boyfriend?" And he looked at me, he's like, "What?" I said, "What if my boyfriend's Cass?" And he was like, well, I'm just saying. The only pass I get right now is that my boyfriend could be Cass. And so playfully so. And then it evolved to, well, what are some of the things that you feel like would be difficult if I were to have a boyfriend? And we talk things through. And he was like, well, where does my dad fit? Or would I now have 2 dads? And we touched on the theory of some of those conversations. Still only in theory, because
honestly, from what I see,
what's our hair right now?
Yeah, but exactly, but the dynamic that I see happening, and I wouldn't go too much into because she's not here, and then I think you actually was the one who told me how to navigate this episode, which I think the practice episode was much better than we have it, because you have to consider our partners.
I think it's important,
right? Mm-hmm. So. But because I am a good father and she's a good mother, there is no mix-up in her head. This is my mother and father. You see, and I never felt threatened by anybody who came around, because she knows this is my father. Yeah. This is my mother's date. This is my father's friend.
That's good.
That's it.
That's good.
But and that's because we reached our way. We reached very fast. I mean, by the time Isabella was ministry, we were back on our.
Minutes to
Yeah, we were back. Listen, she was not the nicest 2-year-old. You could ask the cameraman, brother. Isabella had a high pitched voice, and she really didn't listen to anybody about anything.
Really?
She gave real trouble at 2. But the person who she is now is not.
Terrific too, that.
It was real
It's
bad.
a very important developmental stage that they learn to demand
Exactly.
of the world and the independence.
It's not terrific. I'm glad that you're saying terrific. It's called terrible.
Big up Isabella.
And I'm going to tell you all, it's horrible. And if you're going to have a child, you're going to hate your partner when that child reaches 2 years old. And you're going to learn the difference about loving somebody unconditionally and liking them because you don't like them.
It's true.
You love them. And it's so cute, but you don't like them.
It's true. It's true. I was wondering, I was like, where are you going with this? No, it's true. And it doesn't get, by the way, it doesn't get easier, as you know. They go from the terrible 2s to the 3s to the titty. And I've told my son to his face, he was like, bro, I don't like you right now.
But you're going to have puberty stage. Thank God I'm not there yet.
Even before that. Because
the mother gets it.
They're different. They're different.
Attitude and the mother gets it.
I'm like, bro, I don't like you. Do I love you forever? There's nothing you could do that would make me love you. What is this? But that's my relationship.
I think with her puberty stage, her pre-puberty, I think that she connects with me because I am not as mature as I should be when it comes to anything besides work. No, it's true. Like she could more connect with me because I don't be that rigid with her. Like
right.
I really get what I went through in my life, which is other episodes that people will see.
Yeah.
What I went through in my life and the things that I went through and saying, I have such an empathy for every stage of every child's life, every human. Like to me, I don't like people who's thief, but I will talk to the criminal who murdered somebody because I think that you have a story. So I think you have a reason. But I mean, a thief, especially a man thief, go and watch. You could have wiped the car down for $20, $40. I will be somebody who will have nothing and say, they're a friend and say, we should go wash cars. Like, so you can't beg me as a man.
Okay.
Right?
I see.
But
anyway,
the thing is, being straight, but the thing if I say is that...
come back because we'll go far.
Yeah,
I love the discussion, we'll go far.
What I'm trying to say is that like I always have an empathy for where she is. And then I believe that there's great balance is what you have and what her mother has is that I have an empathy for discipline and structure because that will, and it does work. But she needs the balance.
I'll say this.
Because I actually come in and say, all right, after church, we're going to go home and fuck off. And you know, that's all I tell her. We're going to do Sunday. And she,
in order to make room for extra play and in order to make room for things to go sideways and for relaxation, as paradoxical as it sounds, opposite as it might be, that's why I'm so rigid.
Yeah.
So that I can make time and have time for, it's almost like I'm planning for shit to hit the fan. And I know that if I miss one window, I can make it up in another window. If everything is all over the place all the time, then I can't figure out the market.
No, not like that. You can't be in charge whole time. So, Kems, what is your structure like now? How is managed time, schedules, and responsibilities? Which obviously I told you I want to get a structured answer of this because we talk about. I just like, like what does your co-parental life look like with all the stuff that you do because you're a career lady?
So, my son is with me in the week, Monday through Friday. Well, Thursday night into Friday. After much messy middling, one day in the middle of the pandemic, his dad said, hey, I think I want to come and get him this weekend. And it became the thing, the ritual. So it became every weekend. So he's, during the week, I am in mommy mode. On the weekend, it's daddy mode, which we realize works for us pretty okay. My work hours in typical life, it's pretty flexible. So even though he's with me Monday to Friday, I may not always have to be at the office or with this heavy, busy pace. And because of that and what I'm able to be afforded, it makes it very easy. Co-parenting now also looks really good with better, vastly improved with communication. If I have something to do, I say out loud, hey, on this day at this time, perfect example, went to Tight Spaces with Freetown last week or week before.
Nice.
And that's a Thursday, right? Our son has sports and things. It's a school night, right? but it's also Freetown, so I do make exceptions.
Exactly. Not for karaoke, but
Not for
Freetown,
karaoke.
yes.
But maybe I'll make an exception for karaoke, but for Freetown, yes. And so I messaged him from the weekend and I said, hey, I really want to go to Freetown's show on Thursday. I know he has his sports stuff. How do you feel? Are you okay? Does it interrupt your drive, whatever you have going on, to take him home until I get back? And he said, no, that's fine. And then vice versa. There was a couple of weekends ago. He messaged me. He's like, hey, I have XYZ going on and I'm not going to be around much. Are you able to have him stay for the weekend? Yeah, sure, no problem. Because why? We've not taken things for granted. And
I
we've
think,
not taken
to me, I think that
advantage of
comes when you stop trying to romanticize each other and stop and realize that there is no us coming back intimately.
That
And I want you to be happy. I want you to have a fulfilling life.
I think it's even more. It's
like,
for
I
us,
sure
it's
you
more
want
than
him to
that.
have a
Of course,
good life.
I've always wanted it.
Right.
For us, it's beyond that. That expectation for communication and for better relating with each other was simply for the sake of our son. And I mean, in my career, I've had a shift a couple of years now that allows me to not have to be so rigid all the time because I'm not on a plane all the time. I don't have to worry about packing 5 school underwear, 8 weekend underwear, 5 vests, 5 shirts, 3 pants.
Especially at 13, he could do all this stuff.
I don't have to. It's my life is a little bit different now, so I'm able to relax. But he's also grown, and co-parenting looks now like a genuine. I feel like it's a genuine respect for each other.
I love that. So how do you stay? So how are you all staying respectful to each other's lives while still showing up for your child? And I believe that would be like, how do you respect? I know you can't agree with every single thing that he's doing in his life, but you have to respect it because you're not his woman and he is not your man.
Facts.
So how do you all find that common space? Like us, my child was like, "Do you, friend?" And I just be like, "Well, that your thing."
I just hush. As hush.
Me too. I was like, "Well, that your thing."
But he knows
unless
me.
she calls to be like,
he knows
which
me.
I will listen.
He knows me very well. He'd be like, yeah, I'm nothing to say. No, I'm nothing to say. And then it may come back around in a conversation. So I think for us, the dynamic, it helps that we were really good friends before.
Mm-hmm.
And I always wanted it to be that he could still be a good friend. And even though we didn't work out in that way, I always used to tell people, it's not that he's a bad person, and it's not that he's a terrible father. It's just that him and I can't exist in this kind of energy and space.
Thank you. And that's why I always say, I was like, listen, my child's mother is the greatest mother I think for who I would ever choose to raise my child. Because look at her. She tops in gymnastics. Well, these days again, she's like a A+ student. And you know, when I do my checkups on her maths, it's so easy. I was like, yeah, sure, you know, she father can even pass a B. So the thing is, she's doing her job. She's killing it at that.
Yeah.
But this is where I worry with both of y'all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even Isabella, my daughter, tells her this, the same thing. We ask, like, what are you going to do when you don't have this baby thing anymore? You don't have this child. Like, so how do you stay?
A full life.
What are some of the things that you had to learn to choose you? Because I know that what I feel, and I think this is where we more connect rather than our partner, I feel guilty choosing my life. I really do. And but the thing is, I growing older now, I was like, but if I didn't do this, how are we going to do all these things?
I think very early on, that guilt and that shame, that does exist. It always exists. I had my previous boss, she was a pillar, I think. And more than her being my boss, she became someone that helped me unknowingly navigate the messiest of times.
Yeah.
And I remember there was one work trip, I was away for Mother's Day. I was sitting in Mexico for a month doing training, and I was missing Mother's Day, my first Mother's Day. The depression was real, but I say that to say
every day is Mother's Day.
What happened, right? So that's what she taught me. But answering your question of how do I plan to live my life when my child no longer have time for me, I've always done it. Involuntarily at first, right? I took up this job and I'm like, okay, travel, I'll figure it out. And thankfully, I didn't miss his birthday ever. That was one of the things. And I think my boss, in her kindness, understanding what it meant to me, never scheduled me for that, and I always took
My jobs, I
vacation.
have to miss birthdays at times.
And that's painful. So anyway, so Miss Mother's Day, and then in Mexico they celebrate Children's Day the weekend that we celebrate Mother's Day. So I get to work the Friday. I walk into the office, and there are all of these kids dressed up in their superhero costumes and Frozen and Spider Man, and I barely make it to the room I'm in. And I get there and I bawl my eyes out because what kind of mother am I?
I need to work and be here.
And then I'm sitting in the hotel on the Sunday,
That's how I felt in New
and
York.
it's not quite Mother's Day in Mexico, but they will acknowledge it still. I think this may have been one of the sweetest things my son's dad ever did. I'm sitting at breakfast, and I'm leaving. When I left breakfast, I'm depressed. And I get back to I'm going back to my room, and the lady at the front desk goes, "Oh, before you go, there's a delivery for you." And he arranged for a Happy Mother's Day card to be delivered that my son had done with a bouquet of flowers. Well, I bawled on the place. I cried.
You see, we're not horrible.
No, and I called him. I was like, "Oh my God, it's so sweet, and thank you so much." And that day, I think, shifted a big piece of gratitude because he didn't have to. And I think he also recognized how hard it was for me to not be in the country because of how much I value being a mother. I love being a mother. It's one of the biggest callings and the coolest things I could ever do. But I am much more than a mom.
Of course.
And my boss
And I
helped
think
me.
we all as parents have to understand.
Yes.
They're gonna get big, and
My old
same
boss,
way you don't check your parents, they go and do the same
my
thing
old
to you.
boss helped me identify that as early as my son being 3 that year. And then she asked me, she's like, "How was the weekend?" And I said, "It was terrible." And we talked about it. And she planted the seed in me that day. She said, "And who are you outside of his mom?" And I didn't have the answer. And he was 3 at the time. And I was like, shit, ain't no way. I just want to be somebody's mom.
But imagine, yeah.
And
he's
then
3.
I started, and he's going to be a full teenager this year. And so I started reflecting on that. And that was the beginning of who else do I want to be outside of this person's mom? And I fell in love with my work and myself and the growth and all of the wonderful things that y'all see I'm doing now. It's because I recognize that I'm a whole person, 1. And 2, I also wanted to make sure that my son had an example of a woman or a person, people that are going after their dreams.
Exactly.
We are the biggest inspirations to our children, and we get them for a really
But
short time.
it is hard doing it in front of them, though, because
It is.
like in New
The
York,
sacrifice.
when I was doing my New York stint, and you say he was 3. Look at me at Isabella, it was 11. Well, let's say 11 because it's December, right? And she was leaving New York. So I was doing my stint in New York. I had some stuff I was doing there for a very long while. So she would come up for holiday time. She would come up for Christmas. And I got like about 5 days with her. And I was still working. So I was back and forth. I stayed by them where they were staying just to be with Isabel. And the last night, I left her, big man thing. I just could see her, love and all that. But on the train, when I first reached New York, I saw people sitting on the train in New York.
Yeah.
And crying their eyes out at times. And I'm just like, what do you hear? I'm about to
what do you do in your life?
You just crying on the train. And then fast forward to December 26th. My child is going home.
Yeah.
I just gave her the hug and kiss, and all. We had Christmas, and now I was back and forth. And for a 1.5 hour train ride, I cried for 45 minutes, and I just can't stop crying. And I just don't understand. I can't stop crying, and because I know my child is going back to Trinidad, and I hear, and my life is about career.
Yeah.
I need to do this because I know what I need, I know what I want, and I know that this is what she needs. But it's like, it's so unfair that I have to do all this and not see you grow, more or less. I don't get up in the morning to you. I don't do these things. But the thing is, it's just the reality of how sad.
Right. And it's
co-parenting
a lot
actually,
of it.
as much as it's healthy, it's very sad.
But hear me out. I feel like co-parenting or full partner parenting, my brain immediately went to like the army wives and the army husbands, and whether it's co-parenting in the dynamic
that's definitely still co-parenting.
You're missing something, and the trips didn't get easier. And part of me was grateful for the pandemic because I had no choice but to be home.
But I think I just like them so much more when they get older. It's
right.
Like,
kind
so
of.
now when it is,
but
you're a boy.
Everything shut down. No, the pandemic changed everything. And I think the pivot for me mentally, before I knew that I was ready to make the move that I did from one one position to the next in my corporate space, I remember my son looked at me mid-pandemic. I'm stressed out of my mind because he's in virtual school and I'm trying to deliver online training. It was crazy. And
You
he
know,
looked
everything was
at
about
me,
training and
right, and he
online.
looked at me and he said, "Mom, this is really cool that I get to have you home all the time." And the light went off in my head, and I was like, "Okay, it means that it's time for me to start making different decisions because when the borders reopen and I have to make a trip again, I don't know that I'll be able to go."
Yeah.
And that's a being a mom is a big piece of me. It's not all of me, but I was able to stop and say, and I'm grateful that life afforded me the opportunity to stop and say, if he were to fall apart because I'm not here, I don't think I can live with myself. And what opportunities exist? And then I kept pouring into myself, and the dreams kept happening. And one step into the media space became another foot and another foot and another foot. And now he's getting to see me at my fullest. And I always tell people that I meet now, it's like, who you're meeting today is like the coolest, best, most grounded version of me ever. And I'm not done. But that's also the example that I want to set for my son, that he could see that life you can do the things, and it encourages his dad.
So this is where I go, because like you're still doing all these things, like, and no matter what you show online and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, this podcast is necessary. You can't tell me, you can't. There is a fucking part of it that's it's very hard.
Yes.
It's very anxiety driven, and because all those things, going to the registration, showing up here, doing these things, it comes with a level of freaking stress. So how you protect your peace while co-parenting and trying to be like how great we're trying to be? Like
My son and I.
This is a question I'm asking because I don't know. Like I don't know if I correct my peace.
My son and I have a really great relationship. I think that was one of the things I wanted for myself with him. I always wanted to know that I could be the best mother, yes, but understand and learn who my son is. So we've talked for his entire life about all of the hard things for his entire life.
Yeah.
And I think because of the relationship we have, when I'm at my max, I'm able to tell him very calmly and with words, hey, mommy's at her max right now. You have done nothing wrong. It is not on you. It is me. And here's what I need for me. I need half of an hour just to myself. A little quiet time. I'm not mad at you. At the end of the half an hour, let's go build a puzzle, read a book, build some.
How old is he around this time?
Maybe 8. At the first conversations, about 8 or 9. And to this day, it's what I still do. I come home and I have a bad day at work. I said, hey, today was a shit show. Yes, I say that in front of my son. Today was a shit show. I don't know how much extra patience I have for any shenanigans. That is entirely up to you. But I need to take a time out.
Yeah,
I'll come back around. I'll come back around. And I think a big piece of it is making sure that when you say you're going to come back around, that you do. So he trusts me, and there's a credibility. There's another rule that I have. I don't miss bedtime. As big
when
as
you
he
enter
is.
that.
Yeah. I mean, and for the most part of most of his life now.
But now with your phone, you don't even have to miss it. I mean, you can literally be there.
I don't miss bedtime. As long as he's home by me, I don't miss bedtime. If I am going to miss bedtime, he knows from the morning, hey kiddo, I have something I need to do. I'm going to be out late. What time are you coming home? Probably close to bedtime, maybe a little after. I don't miss bedtime. There was one person that I guess you could say that we were dating, and in the early, he said, listen, I have a kid and I appreciate you wanting to take me out. I have to be home by 9 p.m. latest. I can be out after my son goes to bed, but I have to be home by 9 p.m. latest. And
Pick me up at 10.
He respected that. Or we'll do stuff after work when it was still early, and that wasn't frequent.
I always like to keep everything out.
But it's really, really important for me to be home for bedtime. And as big as he is, it's a thing. So he would ask me, he's like, oh, you're going out? Or he would see me getting ready, or he'll smell the perfume, and he'll say, where you going? Work or play?
Work or play.
And I'll say, none of your business.
It's always the same. Work and play.
I'll say, none of your business. I'll be out. Are you coming out before bedtime? And most times, if it's a no, he's already known. But most times, if it's a yes, I'll say, yeah, I'll be back. And once I come home, my first thing, I take off my shoes, I wash my hands, and I make sure that I go into his room and I give him a kiss. As big as he is, because that matters. And because of it, I think it allows me to continue doing all of the crazy things that I do, because he and I are pretty secure in that way. So I hope that helps. it's
No, it's
forming
excellent.
form the relationship with them and help them
So
understand.
your
And
piece is that, I guess from what you're saying, you find peace in that I make life a priority and not only career a priority.
Yeah.
And life is giving him that to speak about, that to think about, that to grow up with.
I go to my
Right.
parties, I go on my lines. That was one of the things his dad and I had real issues navigating in the earlys. I was not gonna have no child on my breast for 5 years. I'm sorry.
Definitely not.
I will work hard, and on a Friday I'm going to knock bears by pies, and
Pies and
Miami
fun.
love pies. 2 Heineken and then I out. It was never like a whole night scene.
No, but you know, I show my
But
face. I had to talk to everybody
work
else.
hard.
you
I
know.
work so hard. I deserve a party. I
Being
deserve
the
2 bears.
cigarette smokes, fan it. Tell people.
No, I
"Oh."
know that.
No, I'm
2
not
bears,
saying
yeah.
that. Just being bar vibe, you know,
2
do the
bears
thing,
and
take a talk.
2 bears
Enjoy
and
yourself.
home. And that I wanted to maintain that early because it is so easy, especially as mothers and the societal pressure, to get sucked into the I have to be a mom 24/7.
24/7. No.
I was a person before I had this child, and I'll be a person after.
I love that. Do you believe separating was better for everybody, the three of you all? I believe it was. I'm quite sure my daughter's mother believed it was.
Yes.
Yes.
In hindsight, in the sight that I had 10 years ago, 11 years ago, when I knew leaving was the better thing and separating was the better thing. Absolutely. And the reason for it was because, again, what is the vision or what is the origin story that I'm going to give my son?
I didn't want this child growing up with two unhappy parents just trying to stay together. So, but my daughter was like 1 minute to two. I know me, I like the minutes because to me,
Yeah.
that's what I remember it. And
It's hilarious.
yeah. But so, she had responded when I left. When they went back home, said she'll go on us while I stayed here in Varsity. She was quite okay because she had to come here anyway to do preschool.
Right.
So I actually had her more when she was younger because preschool was closed. So
Right.
I would have her the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then the mom would have a Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Right.
I'll drop it there Monday and then I come and I take her.
And she's with you.
But then, well, now not so at all. Because she's so busy and her life is so amazing with the expensive school I pay for. She has met very well to do friends, and that's why you pay for those schools, so that you know the child is surrounded by the company you wanted to keep, because public school is total madness. I started to say that, but it is. There are funds that are really good. So I think she has adjusted so well to us being separate. Now I'd be like sometimes like, hi, don't forget you have a daddy. Hi, because they have weekends that she can't. So she's like, well, I have to go by the sleepover and I'm doing this and that. And it's all the girls doing all the girls stuff, but I would never want to suffer from, because when my parents wasn't happy, I believe that one of the things they would do, and even all Caribbean parents used to be like, you stay home, you do it. You could just have me all having fun and not see you home being sad and angry, you know. But you just kept me in that house.
It was
for what
always
reason?
it was always the story. What is the example that I want to set? Because whether we realize it or not, and most people are coming around to it, the example of whatever happened with our parents is the example that we take into. It's a core thing for us. And there's a lot of work that goes into undoing or in rewriting the story, and that's fine. I'm sure my son is still going to need therapy on some level at some point, and we'll cross that bridge when we get there, right?
Life that they
but
into now.
the space of the idea of staying just so that the children don't see outside with that. And
so that's where I was going to ask you. What
outside with that.
What would you say to people who believe that staying together for the kids is the best thing? You have to try and make it work.
It's not.
You're trying to make it work. Fighting in front of the child.
It's not.
Because I remember growing up, like my mother will be crying sometimes to the point where she couldn't even change. I learned to change myself at around about 5, 6.
Yeah.
Because she just couldn't change me. She said, baby, and she was so sad, she would just leave me outside the door. And she crying because he and her fighting.
It's not healthy.
He doing his crap. I kind of knew. It was so much.
I kind of knew from the earlys that I knew what I missed out on growing up. Now my parents are married happily, so I believe. for many years,
Many
but
years.
it still doesn't mean that you don't come with your own experiences and your own baggage and your own things. And I remember the arguments that his dad and I would have, while they were in no means violent, they're not mashing up, they're not pelting, they hurt, the words hurt so bad. And
So it left your energy drained.
correct, it was a very different kind of um, experience of pain. And I
But
only
we were growing
learned
up too. At the same
exactly,
time.
and I only learned that in therapy, where I used to walk around saying, "Well, he don't hit man, he don't drink, he don't smoke weed, he don't bring a drunk to the house, he not robbing nobody." Hey, why? Why? That's what my friends used to say. Why are you gonna leave him? And I used to say, because I feel so alone. I don't feel seen. I don't feel heard. I don't feel understood. I don't feel respected. And what kind of example do I want to give my son when he sees two people that are ultimately living together, but there's no affection, there's no kindness, there's no warmth? What example is that setting? And
But even if you're not together, which is something I actually thinking I need to work on myself. How does he treat you in front of your son? When you greet each other, does he give you a hug and a kiss and thing?
no,
And I think
very
that this
cordial.
is something I actually have to work on. I should
think
greet
so.
a little more
Yeah.
because she should, as a girl, she should see this is how a man
Thank
treats
you.
a woman
Exactly.
who is doing good for him.
Exactly.
Because
Exactly.
we are so catty with our relationship. Me and my mother is like, yeah, you're good, do that for me. Ting.
No,
But
we are-
that's us and our bullshit. That's like, but that's just our thing. But I realizing as she should get older, she should see,
So
you know, buy a
his
flower
dad-
for mommy.
His dad and I are very,
mommy,
his
do
dad and
nice
I are
things.
very cordial, very polite. So if nothing else, there's always warmth and manners. On a bad day, I might not be the kindest, warmest, brightest star
No, you'll never.
in greeting people, but it's a work in progress. And you know, I remember back then the whole to the point of staying because it's a Caribbean thing to do. I peep people's lives, and I didn't want that for myself. Because trust and believe, if you ask the kids, well, you are an example of that. If you ask people who've been through really tough stuff, for parents who try to stay together for the majority of it, you weren't blind.
Total mess.
You know, you saw, you
A
understood,
total mess.
and it shaped the way that you see the world.
It should
and
be way
so-
how you even love now. Like if
And
it's not
so-
drama and bacchanal, you
I
think
know
it's
drama.
not normal.
I said, you know what? I will take the other side of things, which is to probably have to show him what it means to relate with people compared to having to show him what a terrible thing looks like. And I made peace with that early on, and all of the aunties and the this and the that, because my family are all big. Oh my gosh, you're leaving? And I said, yes, I am. You don't think it's going to affect the child? It's going to affect him anyway, so I might as well have my sanity in the process. That's me. I am a ray of sunshine, but I will also say the things that need
But
to be
that's
said.
the thing. So
and
how
not
you
be bothered.
overcome the fear and the judgment? Because at the end, as much as we said, oh, but that's why I do it, and thing, you know you had that thing because I used to like hate to go to family function because I just the question. But you know you have to find somebody to get married.
Can I tell you
And
something?
you just, why you to get married? Why you don't know this generation don't love?
Can I tell you something? I think that the terrible teenagehood that I had and the perceived shame that I believe I brought on my family gave me a really thick armor.
Because you just, it's like
I was a
she going
troublemaker.
and mess up with we vibes and values.
No,
anyway.
exactly.
She going and
I
do she
was
own
the-
thing.
Yo, hold on, I'll have it a minute because this is, well, I mean, you know me a long time. I give her hell trouble.
Not trouble. I mean, you were just, I'm gonna do my thing.
Exactly. Like,
Well, you know, but in a while, things like
no,
no,
it
but
was never
you're
wild.
always classy,
Was
but
never wild.
always doing your own thing.
Correct is right. And I feel like ever since then, you're gonna
Like you know, imagine
you're gonna
me
do it
and
anyway.
you.
Believe it or not, to that point, I actually think that it helps to make me better.
Because even when I tell him about some things, I think in my head.
Because I
Nikki,
tell him,
come on,
I be like,
who are
bro,
you?
let's be real. I do what you do before. I tell him, I say, I read the book of tricks.
Yeah.
You
I always
cannot
tell her, I was like,
trick
well, I know you're
me.
lying, but you can go ahead and lie.
Exactly.
I say, but learn to do it better.
Exactly. I say, if you must lie to my lie good. And he looked at me like, what do you mean? I said, bro,
Or that face, like,
at some point, you're going to be dishonest. What I prefer is that you're honest with me so that you could get in trouble to the degree that you're supposed to get in trouble. Because if you're dishonest with me, there's going to be the degree that you have to get in trouble and then the fact that you were dishonest. And I did that from the earliest. But anyway, to come back into the judgment, I don't really care. And I'm saying it in big, I don't care. You are not living my
But
life.
even to go back to what you was just saying, like I started telling my daughter, I said, you see the way we're going now, like I will literally not know what's happening with you because you could have a whole different life on this thing. I say, I had to like throw in some kind of flag. I say, tell somebody what you're doing.
It's true.
I say, always tell somebody.
It's
I say,
true.
this is one advice my father gave me when I was doing my madness. Because you know me, I was Mr. Madness. I'm still Mr. Madness. I am who I am. I love it. But the thing is, I tell her, take that advice from your grandfather.
Yeah.
If it's not me,
Yeah.
I say, make sure it's one of your bigger
Somebody.
cousins who could pick you up.
Correct.
I say, and when you reach the point, and I tell her, this now, I say, when you reach the point when you're going to go out on your own, you just tell me, come and pick me up.
Yeah.
No questions asked.
Yeah.
I say, we'll have about 5 of that for the year. And I just come,
That's funny.
no question asked.
Yeah.
Say, but tell somebody what you do.
Yeah.
Because I don't want that you trying to hide and then you end up in a ditch. Because
Correct.
this is where we live now.
And
This
going
is the situation
thinking
now. I
back
could
to the
have come out my window and go zen and go and jump up my window, go nut something, and nothing was going to happen to me. But now they're not coming back home.
They're not coming back
So
home.
please
Correct.
tell somebody. Send them your location.
I feel like the judgment zone, and maybe that's why we did some of the shit that we did, because there may have been a perceived judgment, or there may have been a missed moment to build a better relationship with our caregivers, and it is what it is. But into the space of navigating the judgment or perceived judgment or what it talk. And if you're man enough, come outside, tell me to my face. If you so feel that I'm making a terrible decision in my life, tell me to my face that you find I should stay with my child father, and I will give you all your
But you
reasons.
remember, you gonna tell them about them.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Say, auntie, look at your life, right?
Not even
So-
that. I will simply say I won't take advice from someone who, and then we'll
X, Y,
describe
and
it.
Z.
Or I appreciate you thinking that you know what's best for me, but no, thank you. And
So-
move on.
What is so basically? You kind of answer most of the questions.
Hey.
So what is family? Like to me, like what does family mean to you now compared to before? Like to me, family means healthy people helping healthy people they love out.
Facts.
Right? What is to you?
Family is where you can be your fullest self. Does it mean that the people that I am related to by blood allow me to be that? No. And therefore, in that space and in that dynamic, and in raising my son around them much more, he and I have had conversations about whether he will choose to be his full self, or whether he thinks, for the sake of everyone around, that he may need to stay on mute. For them. With me, never. Please be your fullest self with me. In family, defining family is very personal to you. And defining family in a co-parenting situation, it's opened up my eyes to possibility. Social studies back when we was in standard 3 and 4 was the nuclear family, and the extended family were grandparents, aunt, uncle, cousins, and that in a sense is how I grew up. Very
They need to have a new image called
It's changed.
the real family.
Yeah.
People who it is the universe brought into my life.
Right.
My friends, my core unit, my mom and them who I like.
Right.
The family, blood family, I actually fuck with.
I think social
I
studies.
say, and that is family. Because my child's mother I will always refer to her as Isabella's mommy, my family.
Yeah.
I'll always refer to her mother as my mother-in-law. I'll always refer to her father as my father-in-law. I said, we share a grandchild. That is their grandchild.
Books, the social studies books have evolved, and they've encouraged and introduced blended families a whole lot more. I never thought, didn't imagine it for a millisecond of my life, that I could potentially end up with a blended family and end up with a split family and end up with the non-nuclear, so to speak. It's been a wild ride, and I don't think that I regret any of it. It's just different. And it's allowed my family, which would otherwise be super traditional, or at least as I would have perceived them being super traditional, to also become open-minded. Because even though I've ended up here from the beginning. When I got pregnant, I wasn't trying to rush to get married neither. And that was a big deal, right? So family, I think, evolves as our lives do, and the definition of it changes. My son knows that he has a core group of people that will go to war for him.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the nuclear core of people, if I could use the whole nuclear family term, but the nuclear of people that will go to war for him. And then the people that he can depend on. And it's been a blessing to see him grow alongside my relatives. And I'm using the term intentionally because the age that he is now navigating life is the age that I was having a very hard time in life.
Totally understand.
And so it's almost like it's a second life that I get to live through him or witness it alongside him, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. Did I want to move back home just before the pandemic? No. Am I trying to go anywhere else right now?
You did, but you was going to do it at home by yourself with this child.
I may have really, I don't think I was going to make it. And the blessing that it was in disguise has allowed me to see life differently. Am I trying to go anywhere now? No. One, my parents are getting older. We talked about this before, like how life is changing. And I left home so early. I feel like.
What age you left home again?
I was 21.
Oh, gosh, Kendall. I left at 24.
20.
20 is very early.
I signed the lease for my first apartment 4 days before.
Hello, I still wanted money from mommy and daddy.
4 days before my 21st birthday. 4 days before my 21st birthday.
Okay, Netflix. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I signed my lease. And I stayed out until the pandemic.
Waste of money. Stay in your family.
Well, waste of money, but for me, it was necessary.
For peace of mind.
It was very necessary. And so moving back there was a lot to it, but what I traded for the world, no. It's exactly where we need to be, and I'm okay with that.
One thing I want to go back to.
Yeah.
Do you have, because look at how you're saying how life is so much. You really don't know the ins and outs of your son's father's life.
Mm-hmm.
But do you have compassion for the fact that life just be life in with him?
Every day. I remembered early on after the separation, after, called it quits.
It's very hard for men. It's men's mental health month. Why we filming this right now?
I told him, I said, can't remember at what point.
We're not allowed to be sad.
No, but I told him, I said, I know you think I'm your biggest enemy. And I know that you believe that I don't care. I said, but for what it's worth, I have probably been your number one fan long before you even recognized what your potential was.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say that part out loud so that you recognize that as terrible as things are now, I'm not trying to be your enemy.
Excellent.
And I don't know what he did with the information. I don't know if he cried. I don't know. But I said it because it needed to be said.
And how did y'all react? How was your relationship after saying that? After giving him that reassurance?
I did it a couple more times because I also
because we don't believe you because you're a lying little liar.
Hey, I know I was like, catch those strays, give my chance. I think it was important because, and that's true, I really have always been his number one fan. It's one of the things that made me fall in love with him all of those years ago to begin with. We didn't work out, but it doesn't make him a bad person.
I think that you always love the person you have a child with. Like, to me, that's like, but I mean, yes, and that's so sad. And I hope that this episode will change their life.
But
because
for me and for you, I think so.
How could you not? Like, if anything was to happen, like right now when they're filming this, she go and say, "You have to come now."
Oh no,
close that shop. I have to leave.
I'm leaving
because my family. Once again, my family is called. I have to go.
Yep. And so, as you say that, I remembered.
But my cousin could call and be like, "I'm filming something."
Right. It depends on who, right. So a couple years after, I mean, and he's also grown a lot on his own, and I think me stepping away and he really just had to figure it out. Of course, I have a lot of compassion for him when I learn of the struggles that he has.
It's so much. It's so much. Because I go back to this from our personal conversation.
He's very stubborn too, eh?
Our personal conversation, I mean, not putting on camera, is why actually.
That's fine. Yeah. He making them same mistakes and over and over.
Of course we are.
And
we don't grow up.
The compassion.
Until much older. How old are you?
Don't worry about that.
But right. But the thing is, and how old is he older than you?
We're the same age.
You're the same age. Yeah. But the thing is, mentally he's about 5 years younger, right?
He's okay now.
And that's just how we are as men. That's why we live longer than when you be single.
Give me a chance.
Because we are allowed to be much younger when we're single.
Give me a chance. The compassion that we have,
agree on.
I think there are things that we have compassion for each other, and he knows he was one of the first people that I really let into the space. He was supposed to be my forever. So he really got to know me on a
Because
level.
you Miss Planny Plan.
Planny Plan, of course. On a level, and he understood a lot of my pain, and he understood a lot of the things that life did. He didn't always show it when we were together. All of these years now, little things like he knows what some of my trigger pieces would be with my family, and he shows up in those spaces when it matters.
Because we want you to be good.
Exactly.
If you're not good, they're not good.
Exactly.
Then we not good.
And that's exactly what he said. That's exactly what he said. He said, I know things aren't always easy, and so that's how come I did it. Or I want to think about, or I know today is probably going to be a kind of tough one with all these people going to be in the house. Would it be easier if I brought our son down at so and so time? Like those little things, we had to do that apart. We couldn't stay in the relationship with that. At least I don't think it was ever going to happen. And I've always had compassion for him. I am his number one supporter for the things that he wants to do, and that's just because that's what friends do. You know what I mean? Because we are friends. I would.
You have to be friends.
We are friends. Yeah.
How do you? I don't believe that you could ever have a proper, healthy co-parenting relationship without being friends.
Facts.
You have to care about the person. That person, and you have to have a. But I won't lie. We have a time limit on our friendship, personal interaction, and my daughter actually knows it because she's be like, okay, I think it's time for mom to go home and dad and I to stay. Like she comes and mommy will be like, okay, because she knows that's like. Listen, I used to tell her, I say, the other reason I never told your mother because I can't deal with that.
Thank you. and we also have our limits, and I mean,
and I like that we're very honest with that because I think I'm quite sure she said her daughter that your father does eccentric, crazy things. I just cannot deal with that.
Yeah, I'm grateful for this space. We've grown.
You have to let each other be each other.
We've grown through it a lot. Having this conversation today versus having this conversation 3 years ago
would have been totally different.
180, a complete 180, different responses. I may have still been so angry, but right now, we're good.
And I love that.
We're good.
So, to come down and wind down, I mean, you've been doing a lot and you've been doing great for yourself. I really like doing great for myself too. My definition of success is different from everybody else's own. But what advice would you give to somebody who navigated this new co-parenting thing? Because a lot of people now becoming parents. And I have a lot of people, and I've seen it in real estate, especially because they're always looking for apartments together or trying to buy a house together. And I think in my head, they should not buy a house together. Just by how it is I see and how they're interacting, I'm like, please do not buy a house together.
No, but please buy a house.
do not rent. I wanted to buy a house, but
because I need.
I know, but the thing is, I am that real estate agent. I actually took couples and like, no. And then you know what? I end up renting the husband a house and renting she a house because they just can't beat it. And I knew it was not going to be good.
Tell me the question again. What advice do I have?
So I was like, basically, what advice you would give people going into like co-parenting or deciding I'm not going to be, and we can't be together anymore? My advice to them would be like, never choose the better. Don't try to be right. There's no right when it comes to the child's happiness.
I have so many thoughts on this. I'll try to keep it brief. Grieve it.
You must.
Grieve the life you thought you were going to have, that you will no longer have. Be courageous. The fact that you're leaving whatever this thing was, if it was not so healthy, then courage in leaving is even greater. If it was healthy-ish, but you realize it's not what you wanted for forever, that's still courage to leave. So grieve, be courageous, get help. And not because something is broken or bad or you did anything wrong. It's really tough navigating life. And have a support system. We'll get to acceptance in a bit. Have a support system. Family, chosen or blood, friends, one person minimum that you're able to really have in your corner as you rebuild this life.
Exactly.
And then acceptance. Make peace with the fact that this is where you are now, and it's not that it's a bad life. It's not that it's a terrible life. It's just the life that you ended up having or the life that you chose. Make peace with it, accept it, and you'll cycle through that a little bit, right? The grief and the acceptance and the fear and the courage, like all of those things will cycle, but do it anyway. Because sometimes being apart is better than trying to stay together, and the kids will be all right. They might have a little bung up along the way, but they'll
We
be
all
right.
did.
Yeah.
I
Give yourself
believe we
grace.
all
Give yourself
did.
grace.
Give yourself
Those are
grace,
all the lessons that I've
definitely.
learned for sure. Thank you for asking now.
Yeah.
That was important. That was really important.
I just
Yeah.
love that how you smile when you talk about where you've reached. I mean, it shows that
Listen.
you feel that you have reached where you trying to head, which is the next episode I'm doing. But
Yo,
there's so
I've
much episode I
been
can't do it
through the trenches.
So, but just to define a proper answer to this,
yeah.
how do you, and I will answer it after, how do you define success in this season of your life? That you remember, this season is like our main season. If we fail here, but we fucked.
It's true.
Yeah.
How do I define success? Real joy and peace. Peace at any cost.
What is your definition of peace to you?
Oh,
because
okay.
your definition of peace might be my definition of chaos.
You're
we
right.
have to make everything orderly.
No, that's not my definition of peace. My son mashed that up out to me. No, my definition of peace is learning know thyself, to know what your boundaries and your limitations are. So there's a certain, to use the point of chaos, because like you want to, but it's a really good example. Chaos for me that I can tolerate goes up to a certain point. Example, I can handle when my son's room is untidy. And when I say untidy, he have a hoodie over a chair, he have a half-worn pajama on the bed.
That might be room. So
he ain't make up the bed properly. The clothes that come out the laundry just kind of everywhere. He picking to a certain degree. Books could kind of be out of order. When too much of it is happening, plus any mud from his football tugs and the windows are open for 5 days, I'm at my limit. And peace might look like closing the door and not cleaning the room for 2 days because whatever else I'm going through, I can't manage, I can't deal. Peace might also look like, hey, my dude, lounging, technology is happening, windows closed, mud in the room, clothes everywhere. Take 5 minutes now.
So you are annotating, for lack of a better term, success with peace.
Absolutely, it has to be, and peace looks different for everybody. So my level of chaos. So my son can live. All that to say, my son can live in the chaos. My son, he wouldn't see the books toppling over, and he wouldn't see the clothes hanging off the chair. Right, and that's people. That's not just boys. That's anybody. And am I going to disrupt my really good day because
you're being a nasty teenager?
Come on. So success to me is peace. Success to me is joy. Finding the tiniest nonsense to laugh about or smile about, or the tiniest interaction with somebody that could put a smile on my face, that to me is success. I've won the day when that happens.
Love that.
And has it been easy? No. Is it ever easy? No. Will it always have hardship? I think so. But peace is also finding the joy in the storm and finding the joy in the chaos, whether it's a messy room, whether it's a terrible project, whether it's a missed deadline at work with really big repercussions, whatever that chaos is, whether it's I meet somebody and I fall in love and he break my heart. You understand? That's chaos. But despite it all, I still have peace because I'm grounded and I can come back to myself.
And I love that.
Yeah.
And so now success has come to me that if I see my child living her true self and really getting to live the life that I know I would have want to live, because people was like, oh, you don't have, oh, you just allow her to go on. I said, because she lived in. And this is how we all talk in the family. Me and her mother was like, we live in life here. I said, you was in class, so you part of the big group with us.
Yeah, so and we figured
I wanted mommy to live as much life she want to live.
Yeah.
You want to go away and do these things, I have to make sure I have that money to make sure. And because just money brings those happiness.
Of course.
Money does bring happiness. I don't care what people say, it does.
It's true.
Right? And the fact that I know that I can do that.
When you try to figure out, well, Kimber, how are you doing it all? It's because I have had, maybe to a fault, I also think back, well, maybe I was too something or too harsh or whatever. But know thyself. Know thyself. Become so strict and so radical and so stubborn about what you will and will not accept from anybody. Not your child, not your child mother, not your mother, your father, your friend, and the list goes on. And
because
then it just bleeds.
There.
Right, it bleeds into every other relationship. Business, friendship, personal, romantic, it bleeds into that. And then it also shows like my son, no, not to, I am not the one or the two. Do not play with me.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have our play time, but he also really understands and respects the boundaries. And then that spills over into how he shows up in these spaces with his friends. And I mean, I'm not saying that he may not face difficult things of peer pressure. My hope, if I've done this thing right, success in parenting, my hope is that he could say, Mommy, I did this because I chose it. Not
Exactly.
because I felt pressured to do it, because I wasn't that person. You couldn't get me, you couldn't force me to do shit. If I did something as a teenager because I chose it, I wanted to do it, regardless of what anybody else thought it might have been.
Of course.
And that's what I want for him. That
I
to
think
me
you're still
is
like that
success.
anyway. You're
I
gonna
am.
do what you want to do.
Exactly that. Correct is right. Thank you for asking. That was a really good question.
And I just want to tell everybody that, co-parenting isn't the easy route. It definitely is not one. It has to be an intentional one. It takes a lot of healing. It takes humility. It takes letting go of pride. And you have to do it with your heart and really open your heart to the fact that I am doing this so that my child can have the life that I believe a successful parent will want for their child. Right? It has to be about them, but in the end, I see it gives your child one thing that does matter the most, and that goes right back to what Kemba was saying. That is, it gives your child peace, and peace equals success. Because when they have peace, they grow and they're happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having
What
me.
a better comment! So good. I think we would obviously have more conversations coming up with each other because this one episode actually was going like, oh, she could do this. So yeah, you're gonna come and see me again. But I'm glad that we at least get to do this episode in the dynamic of you the mommy, I'm the daddy. You have a boy, I have a girl, and we have different parents.
Thank you.
And who partners who very kind of polar opposite to how we act, which is good.
Thank you so much for having me. And of course, the name of your podcast is
It's Giving Podcast.
It's Giving.
With Kemba Joe.